it motivates me to speak up even louder, because that's what they want. They want you to feel terrible. They want you to feel shame and guilt for being human, for telling the truth. And that's not going to happen.
One of the first times I met you,
Yes.
we met when we were sitting together at the News Awards. And then we met again when we were both going to a big fancy event where we were both going to be on stage,
That's
the Australian 60th anniversary. And in the car on the way there, we started talking about whether we got stage fright or nervousness on stage. And I said to you, surely you don't get nervous. You've been on TV for so many years and you've been through so much. You know, do you feel nerves? And you told me about a phrase that one of your TV mentors had taught you.
That's right.
What was it?
BTFI, Beyond the Fuck It. And I actually do talk about that in my TED Talk as well, which is coming out on the 3rd of June. And it resonated with the audience at the time because we've all had those fuck it moments. And if you can ride out that worst wave, you'll find serenity. And that's what it's all about.
How does that work in live TV? Because that is something, speaking in public and going on live TV is something that terrifies many people.
I've stuffed up many times, on air, off air, in the field. And if you've stuffed up so many times and you've gone back on the horse and tried to forget the past day, the last show, you're only as good as your next show. So you have this resolve to be better, and it does work.
One of the things I like about that is that it's, I think it tells me something about you. You know, you like swearing for a start.
It's prerequisite of being Australian, I think.
And working in TV, right? Where
oh, definitely. Live TV. Yeah.
Language is blue.
Very stressful.
And you seem to me to be comfortable with being a flawed creature, being a human. You know, you are open to revealing everything about yourself. And
I don't take myself seriously.
Your book is very revelatory. You have really gone there in every way about going to the toilet and having your period and everything that happened to you in prison. Many things that other people might have glossed over. Did it occur to you to gloss that over, to present a version of yourself that didn't go to the toilet and didn't have periods?
No. I think it's a big part of being human to feel pain and discomfort in all sorts of ways. And if we can't acknowledge that, then what's the point of writing? I like to think that I've written an honest book, and that is what happened. That is how I felt. That is what people did. And it's just a big reversal from what China is about, which is hugely glossing over things, making up facts, pinning crimes on people, and then saying with a straight face, this did not happen.
Did you censor anything out of this book?
I changed a few details about inmates, just in case there were repercussions from revealing things. And I hope that nobody cops any flack from what I've written.
Yeah, that must have been a big choice and almost a threshold choice in writing the book at all. Revealing what goes on inside detention potentially does have ramifications for other people. Did you wrestle with that at all, or was it a given that you wanted to tell this story?
I did wrestle with that, and I sought counsel from Kylie Moore Gilbert, who had the same concerns when she was writing her book about the conditions and writing about her cellmates. And it's a toss-up between how my inmates would want their plight to be known and to what degree can the authorities harm them or even their families, and trying to figure out what people are most, or what the Chinese government is most afraid of, and to what lengths they will go to punish people.
One of the things about writing a book a memoir is that you step back into the past very deeply. There are moments that must have been very difficult to relive. Also in the documentary, we see you step back into a recreation of the solitary confinement cell that you were kept in RSDL. Did you have any moments of thinking, I kind of wish I hadn't come back into this moment and I wish I was just moving forward?
No, because even towards the end of my incarceration, I found peace inside, and that meant I was no longer afraid of pain, and I made peace with pain. And I can see the importance of what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, I've written passages in that book where I was howling by myself, and I don't see that as a negative or a deterrent to writing openly and honestly. And pain is a counterpoint for happiness and pleasure. And just like my incarceration was a counterpoint to now being born again and finding so much more joy. A lot of Buddhism is about not trying to grasp joy or avoid pain, but letting it all flow through. And I hope I've done that.
Oh, you really have. It's a remarkable book. It's one of those books that I have found really takes me somewhere else. You know, the wonderful magical thing that books can do. And when you're trying to teach children to read, the hope that they will get this idea that if you have a book, you can escape.
Yeah. And you start to channel the spirit of the writer in small ways.
I felt like I was in there with you in that cell with OG and Psycho Bitch Canto and Skinny.
Yeah.
You describe your cellmates with so much kindness and compassion, but also a lot of honesty about how difficult they were to live with sometimes.
We can all be. I'm sure they have had so many moments of, God, I wish Cheng Lei, well, as I was known, 03 would just, get back to her own country or go somewhere else. There is no respite. I'm sure the loveliest person on earth would be really sickening to live with after, 365 days of no breaks.
As a cellmate, were you conscious of trying to be a good cellmate, or were you just trying to get yourself through it?
Well, to do one, you do the other. I think I came through relatively okay because I felt each day I was going to teach them some more songs. We were going to sing a bit more without getting into too much trouble and share books. And I was going to make up new games and we're going to have some laughs. And each day is going to be there's going to be a little bit of fun. Otherwise, it's just too dark and too utterly dull.
Yeah, you come across as kind of Captain Fun. You were making up word games.
Hey, that's where the Aussiness comes from.
Did you know you were Captain Fun before you stepped into prison?
Well, one parting phrase I love to leave people with is have fun. No matter what you do, make it fun. Life's too short to take yourself too seriously or to stress out about small stuff.
The songs that you taught these women to sing and the knowledge that you shared with them, whether it was speaking English or talking about books that you'd read together.
Dirty jokes.
Yeah.
Can't forget those in Chinese and English.
Perving on Daniel Craig on TV.
Or perving on the one arm that we could see of the guard ladling out the water.
Did that being cheerful and finding moments of humour, was that a burden to carry as well? You had become this person, kind of the camp counsellor. Was that hard at times?
No, I always wanted to do more. I always wanted to be able to bring back more news from the embassy visits. Anything that was funny or like the surfing snake of the Gold Coast man, I told my cellmates about it. And I said, that's what Australia's all about. Silliness. Yeah. In a good way.
I've got a passage that I was hoping you would read for us, actually. And it's about when you were I think it was when you were in a cell just by yourself with Psycho Bitch.
PB was turning the detention centre rules into a joke. It became a cycle. The officers would discipline her, incensing her to the point of uncontrollable fury, which escalated the punishments and her retaliation. She seemed to get off on it, even after screaming at the detention centre chief earned her 3 days and nights of handcuffs. She said she was going to sue the detention centre for discrimination and was going to report Canto's varied sins. It dawned on me that the world stepped back when you had no shame, no qualms about lying, and a loud voice that you used often. She was the Donald Trump of inmates. To combat this constant stress, I had to be my own coach. First world problems. Think of people experiencing wars and famine, being brutalised. This is the best time in my life to read and study.
Do you feel the urge or the need to cling to that joy in the present moment and in the mundane? Do you feel like that might slip away if you don't guard it?
I do have to sometimes remind myself to get back into the first days of looking at the world with a newborn's sense of wonder.
And is there anything that you've let go of, conversely? Do you no longer get annoyed by the toilet seat being left up or or by Donald Trump? Are there big and small things that don't annoy you anymore or not?
I'm pretty chilled about almost everything. When people honk at me, I smile at them. And when I see something annoying, I'll remind myself that I'm so privileged to be able to have that annoyance. And I eat a lot and don't really fret about what I look like or and whenever I've only bought very, very little clothes because I went for 3 years and 2 months wearing 2 or 3 T-shirts, and all of my worldly belongings can fit into one little container. So now material things mean a lot less to me. And when I give presents or when people give me presents, I love it when it doesn't involve things, when it's an experience or when it's time that we spend together, which is, or a thought, something thoughtful. It's giving people a call. Because we all have too many things. I mean, you look at hard rubbish collection days. We're just throwing out things because it really taxes us to look after things and store them, and we don't even use most of the things. Whereas if our minds were fertile with imagination and we were learning and growing and our hearts were bigger, then we don't need to we don't need to throw out so many things because we wouldn't have so many things in the first place.
It seemed to me that in prison you felt very Australian. What remnants are there of your Chinese personality?
And it is very conflicting to be ethnically Chinese, to try to separate what I feel for the country, whatever you call a country. It's almost because of the incarceration, I find country and nation and state to be dirty words, because there was me, an Australian Chinese citizen working for a Chinese company, well, state-owned company, thinking I was helping a Chinese friend who worked for an American company, and they call it espionage. I mean, obviously they had to pin something on me, but I'm just saying that the absurdity of the lines we draw on this planet. We should be, instead of being nationalist, we should be earthist, universalist. We're not so different. I mean, the guards and officers, when they weren't tormenting me, I mean, consciously or otherwise, they had their own problems. They had sore backs. They had to come to this depressing workplace and see people cry, and they couldn't go home during COVID periods and look after their parents. Everyone suffers.
I love the empathy that you're showing for them, and more broadly, you show empathy for everybody in China as really prisoners of this government.
Yes, And sometimes everyone who does business or interacts with China, we all unconsciously become prisoners, or we're incarcerated in invisible prisons.
Yeah, when you look back at yourself, you were living the life of a kind of rom-com. This glamorous Beijing apartment, sort of trotting into work in your shift dress and your heels.
No, more Bridget Jones.
Do you look back at yourself and think, I was in prison then too?
When I was incarcerated, I saw the meaninglessness of a lot of my life. Some of the socializing, some of the people in my life, and the social media posts. It's a great place to think about the meaning of life.
Yeah. But you were part of the system. I mean, you were living a quite free life, but unbeknownst to you, there were rules around you that you weren't necessarily aware of.
I always felt that it was much more effective to push for change within, because I was so-called a foreign expert. I was the one polishing the scripts, so I could make it less jingoistic and more objective, and delete mentions of Xi and all the worshipping rhetoric. And I could invite guests who are more international in mindset, whereas the guest bookers there would just trot out the same old Chinese professors who get paid to say their piece. And I really felt that I was subtly making a difference. It got more difficult under the Trump years because people were being very careful about what they said on Chinese state television, albeit in English. We were getting a lot less access to the Chinese state sector because everyone is afraid of the emperor. But it didn't stop me from posting on social media criticism of China's handling of COVID and the lies they told about Wuhan and the extreme censorship. Even media outlets that tried to commemorate the whistleblower doctor who unfortunately died, they were penalised by having the websites shut for a week or longer. As much as I saw some of the superficial parts of my former life as what it was, especially now, I can see what I did have meaning. A little upsetting that I can't use all of my career forte now because of the stained reputation and people's unjustified fear that speaking to me carries a price.
Random detention of people is such a powerful weapon in silencing people, not only within China but everywhere else as well. There's a theory that you were collateral damage in the Australian government's criticism of China over the origins of COVID. If the price that foreign governments pay for speaking up about China is the potential detention of a citizen and effectively the torture of a human being, is it still worth it for foreign governments to speak up?
Well, we have to better protect our citizens, like the alliance that we created or led by Kylie Moore-Gilbert and co-founded with Sean Turnell. We think if there was a specialised envoy role for victims of hostage diplomacy, then it's a stronger deterrent because you have someone dedicated to negotiating, to helping. But I also think by my speaking out after what happened, it's a deterrent to China incarcerating more journalists, more Australians, because if you don't change your ways, then people are going to find out more about your secret prisons. And China is ultra secretive about its state security incarceration. You cannot Google a picture of where I was. There is no video footage. I mean, you see Irvin Gershkovich, you see all these detainees from other countries and where they were, but you'll never see any. I mean, the embassy, the Australian embassy officials used to have they couldn't use their phones when they came to visit, just for fear of anything leaking out.
Mm. Do you have any hope that anyone in China will see or read your words?
No, I'm not hopeful that that would happen unless they came to or went overseas. And I by mistake clicked on some Chinese articles when the press release about my book went out in February, and the hateful comments under that, all of them were hateful. That I was a foreigner-loving slut, that I had, of course, you know, that's the whole sexist thing comes out. I should be put back into jail. I should never have been let out. I should be shot on the spot. I don't deserve to have my children with me because I'm such a bad role model, and on and on. And as upsetting at the time as it was to read it, it motivates me to speak up even louder, because that's what they want. They want you to feel terrible. They want you to feel shame and guilt for being human, for telling the truth. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, one of the practices in prison is for you to constantly write a self-denunciation. Was there an element of self-denunciation in your book as well? You know, we've talked about how honest you chose to be.
Yeah.
Or not?
I think that there's a fine line between self-reflection and self-denunciation. I think what they wanted was their goal of confession, putting you away, keeping you docile and silent. I think what I write in the book is how I felt, a realistic account of what happened. And yes, there's regret. Yes, there's anger about betrayals. And I guess each reader will take away from it what they will.
Have you yourself come to the realisation that you were an innocent victim of a diseased system?
Yes.
Or not quite?
I have. In the early days, not so. I still had Stockholm syndrome. I was still saying what they had bashed me over the head with. But I guess looking at the facts and remembering all the details of what happened and finding out more pieces, like what the prosecutor had told my defense lawyer, and just putting it all together helped to paint a more complete picture.
And just finally, the colleague working for an American company who you sent the text message to, which was the pretext for putting you in prison.
Yes.
Is it Harvey?
Hayes
Farn.
Yes.
She was also detained but was released on bail before you were released.
Once her testimony against me was extracted for use against me at the trial, she was released.
In the course of the book, you express feelings towards her of anger and betrayal. How do you feel about her now?
I'd love to talk to her. I sent her a message on Instagram. She didn't reply. I don't know if she's still on there. I've heard that she's in London. She couldn't get a visa for Hong Kong. And as you know, I'm a very forgiving person, and I don't do anger. I don't do hate. But I like to talk and find out what happened to her.
Well, Lei, you often talk about feeling that you don't deserve praise. And maybe that's the Australian part of you, or maybe it's the Chinese part, or just the human part.
No, it's having a very strict dad.
Well, and you talk about feeling embarrassed by the standing ovation that you got at the News Awards. Or
Oh, yeah.
wherever you go, being thanked.
I should be, doing, I am not worthy.
Or being praised. But you have, if you were ever in any doubt, now you have created a work of art that, in the book, that is going to change other people's lives. And, will make everybody's life better, including people who are in detention.
Well,
so congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you. Don't want to embarrass you by praising you. But I'm grateful.
I'm grateful to be Australian and to be free. And each day I reflect on the kindnesses of our people as a whole. And I just want to do so much more to make it better.
Cheng Lei, thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire.